Ethan Bear to enter the NHL Players Assistance Program, and Dylan Strome continues to be the Capitals' offensive secret weapon.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. I would love to talk Capitals hockey with you one-on-one, and we can do that on subtext. Just check the show description for more details. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200. If your bet wins, visit fanduel.com/locked on to get started. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the news that broke this afternoon or early evening that Ethan Bear will be entering into the NHL's Player Assistance Program. What does that mean for the Capitals? Ultimately, we will get a look at Vinny Iorio, and Matthew Phillips also gets the call-up. We'll talk about that. A little bit later, we will talk about how Dylan Strome has been the Capitals' offensive secret weapon. And what do I say when I mean secret weapon? We entered into this season not knowing how great he really was going to be. We'll talk about that. And a little bit later, we will talk about how it looks like the Capitals will be staying in DC. But just to get it going here, talking about Ethan Bear and the news that broke today, that he would be the second player this year to enter into the NHL's Player Assistance Program, at least the second player for the Capitals. And ultimately, we wish him nothing but the best. If we can reflect on his time with the team thus far, I don't think that he has lived up to expectations as far as his play on the ice is concerned. Listen, there was a lot of fanfare. There were a lot of teams that were vying for the services of Ethan Bear. But, you know, in his small sample size on this team, he has not lived up to expectation. And we find out today that he's going into the Players Assistance Program. Ultimately, we hope that he gets the help that he needs, but this does present an opportunity for a key blue liner of the future for the Capitals in Vincent Iorio. It'll be good to get a chance to look at him. And then also the corresponding move that Sonny Milano is still on the injured list, so that Matthew Phillips gets the call-up back to the big team before the Capitals head out and take on the Maple Leafs. Ethan Bear, though, is set to enter the NHL's Player Assistance Program. With Ethan Bear out and Sonny Milano out due to injury, the Caps call up Vinny Iorio and yo-yo champion Matthew Phillips up from Hershey. He's up, he's down, he's out of the organization, he's back in the organization. And at the end of the day, I'm always left asking, why? Why Matthew Phillips? What kind of intrinsic quality does he have that I am not seeing? Familiarity? Is that what we're leaning on right now? Is familiarity? I've heard Spencer Carberry talk about that quite a bit, but surely there is someone down in Hershey that is more deserving of an opportunity. Ethan Frank, Joe Snively comes to mind, anyone, but what about Matthew Phillips is just so darned, enticing and intriguing to the Capitals. I will not see it. I won't. I know that he's shown glimpses of greatness with Hershey there, scoring a goal shortly after he got there. But for the life of me, I just don't get it. Bear is out indefinitely and cannot be released until the administrator releases him. So we don't know. We're towards the tail end of the season. Will we ultimately see Ethan Bear back in the lineup? before the end of the season, or what's the long-term plans for Ethan Bear on this team? His whatever issue that he's dealing with withstanding, what is his future on this team, on the lineup, given the fact that he was a healthy scratch for a lion's share of his time on this team? In his second year, Vinny is playing well in Hershey, and ultimately I am happy about that. I'm happy that we're going to get another look at Vincent Iorio on the big team. He's been playing well for Hershey. Vinny is tied for fifth in the AHL in plus 26 through 60 games so far this season with the Bears. He also has 4 goals and 10 assists, and he is tied for the first among Hershey skaters in games played. So taking a look at his plus 26, not too bad, all things considered. And he is going to be a part of the future of the Capitals blue line. And it's a good opportunity to see what he has in the tank. You got to start to think to a certain extent that maybe Brian McClellan is thinking to himself, well, did we make a mistake going all in on Ethan Bear, since he is having a hard time making his way into the lineup, even before the news today that he has been just lightly sprinkled into the lineup since his time here. A new toy for the Capitals that was never quite utilized. I'm not sure what's behind it. But again, Matthew Phillips is the head scratcher. But if it's just based on familiarity, I don't get it. The Capitals are looking for depth and ultimately options. The Caps have Scarboza and Abe Kubel, but Kubel's blunder on the DeBrincat goal and being benched most likely in Carberry's doghouse. There's times that Nicholas Abe-Kubel is super dialed in and a key contributor, but there's also times that he makes gaffes out there and he makes mistakes. And we cannot afford players that are going to be making mistakes in inopportune times. And if you are in Spencer Carberry's doghouse, sometimes it's difficult to get out of there. So it's good that the Capitals have options with Matthew Phillips back up, and also to get a look at Vinny Iorio up on the big team. It's a good opportunity for that to take place. But again, as far as Ethan Bear is concerned, we wish him nothing but the best. I don't know what is behind him be entering into the program. It's none of my business, but there is, evidently some reason behind it. I hope that he gets the help that he needs. It's just one of those interesting things, that Kuznetsov entered the program, and after he entered the program, he got waived. So I hope that is not a trajectory for a player like Ethan Bear, but it's an interesting thing. 2 players from the Capitals this season to enter that program. And it'll also mean that he won't, most likely be on the roster for the remainder of the season. So interesting. You can go down certain conspiratorial rabbit holes, and I'll keep those thoughts to myself, but it's an interesting posture, shall we say. Him entering into that program, regardless of whatever it is, we hope that he gets the help that he needs, because it's good that they have, these programs set up for players that have substance abuse, mental issues, that there is help out there if you need it. And he evidently reached out for help, and he is going to be getting it from the Players Assistance Program. So good for the Capitals, and good for the NHL that those programs are in place for players in need. All right, so coming up here straight ahead, we will talk about how Dylan Strome has been money for the Capitals all season long. Who saw this? Who saw this coming? We knew he was going to be great. The Chicago Blackhawks did not offer him a qualifying offer. They've got to be thinking to themselves, what did we do? Why did we pass? Why did we not try to keep Dylan Strome on this team? Their loss is the Capitals' gain, and I'll discuss straight ahead. Say goodbye to busted brackets, because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And listen, sometimes you're watching these games and you're not that into it. Open up the FanDuel app, put a little bit of money on the game. All of a sudden, the game is that much more exciting. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Dylan Strome has been that pleasant surprise for the Capitals this season. He has been the steady offensive force this entire season. Alex Ovechkin currently leads the team in goals, but he's just poured it on here as of late. Dylan Strome has been the steady Eddie, to use a Craig Laughlin term, on this team the entire season. And he has been clutch here as of late. And he's excited about the opportunity of potentially making it to the playoffs and, dare I say, maybe a Stanley Cup. The Capitals hold a 2-point lead over the second wildcard spot and are 1 point behind Philly for third in the Metro Division, and no doubt it isn't due in large part to Dylan Strome, him coming up huge in really big opportunities. And taking a look at Strome was drafted third overall by the Arizona Coyotes in 2015 in the NHL entry draft. On July 6th, 2015, he signed a 3-year NHL entry-level contract with Arizona. Of course, we remember him most recently before the Capitals with the Blackhawks. Only Alex Ovechkin has scored more goals this season for the Caps at 26, and Ovi was late to the party this year. Dylan has been pouring it on all season. And again, he was a player. When he came here, I was familiar with the name, but I had no idea he was going to be as good as he's been. If this can be sustainable, I think the Capitals have truly found a diamond in the rough. Dylan Strome has been the consistent goal scorer for the Capitals we were looking for, with Alex Ovechkin getting off to his slowest start of his career. There were a lot of questions that surrounded the Capitals in the beginning of the season, with Nick Backstrom stepping away from hockey and Evgeny Kuznetsov being inconsistent. They were looking for someone to take the bull by the horns in the goal scoring department, being that Alex Ovechkin, the grade 8, number 2 all-time in goals, was faltering. They needed a saving grace, and they had it in Dylan Strome. The Capitals needed to take charge and start scoring goals, and the consistent player game after game has been Dylan Strome, a center that's not afraid of shooting the puck and not afraid of delivering in some of the Capitals' most crucial points of the season. We saw a 2-goal performance against the Red Wings that was punctuated with a mic drop overtime goal game winner. That's what I'm talking about. That's what he brings to this team. He can answer the bell on the biggest stage against the biggest teams when we need him the most. This is the same Dylan Strome that just 2 games before downed the Hurricanes with a shootout game winner, winning it in the 5th round. Again, clutch in a big, crucial moment. Gave the Capitals a win, and that is exactly what the Capitals were looking for and have found in Dylan Strome this entire season. Dylan Strome has been a consistent force his entire time with the Capitals after the Blackhawks failed to give him a qualifying offer. Strome scores 23 goals for the Caps last year in his team leading, or second place rather, career best 25 this season so far. So for a good chunk of the season, Dylan Strome led the Capitals in goals until the Great 8 decided to turn on the Jets later in the season. In any event, both guys scoring, it's a win-win. I love it. With his OT heroics, Strome has also secured his second straight 60-point season. So he is amassing quite a great analytical spread there. If you take a look at the back of his hockey card, it is glowing. You won't want to look directly at it, or surely you will be blind. He wants to shoot. Carberry said of Strome, he hasn't had the most success as a shootout shooter. I keep throwing him out there. So he's moved his way back a little bit in the shooting line, but that Stromer, even if he's missed 3 or 4 in a row, he's looking to get back in. He goes, I'm the guy. I'm going to score here. I'm going to win this game for the team. And that's the cockiness. That is the self-confidence that you need to be a professional athlete. If you go out there and you tell the coach, hey, coach, I'm going to do the best I can, it's probably not going to be keys for success. If you go out there confidently and you project success, great things will happen. And that has been the case for a lot of Capitals players. Alex Ovechkin, Dylan Strome, former Capital Anthony Mantha, all players that have struggled with confidence but have found their way. His OT winner was the third of the season, and just huge for the Capitals. I hate to say a pleasant surprise, and that I'm surprised at all, because all season and even last season, just a really steady contributor to this team all season long. And we just hope that it can keep going, because there are going to be other moments this season when we need a player just like Dylan Strome to step up big and answer the bell on the biggest stages. And as you make it to the playoffs, there's a whole lot more at stake. There's a whole lot more tension, and the margin for error is that much narrower. So you need someone that if you for some reason make it to overtime or the shootout, that you don't tense up, and you can actually do what you need to do, and that is score goals and score them in key moments. And it's interesting because like I talked about earlier there, he is a center, and generally speaking, centers like to feed the puck to the wings, the forwards there. But he's not. He's the kind of guy that's like, no, I'm fine with shooting the puck, and I'm fine with scoring goals. If I have an opportunity, I am going to shoot it in, and that's fine. I don't care who scores goals at the end of the day. I don't care if it's the blue line. Heck, I don't care even if the netminder can find a way to score a goal, even though Charlie Lindgren tried to do it here as of late. Just find the back of the net, and everything will be gravy. But things are looking good for the Capitals. And their next opponent is going to be the Toronto Maple Leafs. And listen, I know what happened the last time, and you have to put the past and leave it in the past, and just know what the Capitals have done here recently. They struggled with the Jets the first time. They beat them. You take a look at the Red Wings. They lost to them the first time. They beat them the second time. So just to say, because I've heard quite a bit of things out there, that the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to be the kryptonite for the Capitals, I say that's nonsense. And it's nonsense with guys like Dylan Strome on the team, answering the bell, getting it done. So it's good that it's not just Strome getting it done for the Capitals, that Alex Ovechkin has found his way, and they're getting consistent scoring up and down. We've seen scoring from McMichael and LaPierre. It's just really great that this team is catching fire at just the right time. All right, so coming up here straight ahead, we will talk about that it looks like the Capitals will be staying in D.C. after all. What happened? I'll discuss coming up. Passion, drive, and patience, what brings home the winning trophy, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So it was announced today that it does look like the Capitals will be staying in D.C., despite the framework that was in place to send them out to Potomac Yard and send them out of the district. It does appear that the Capitals will be staying put at Capital One Arena. And I don't think there's anyone really too bummed about it, except for perhaps Ted Leonsis. I didn't run into too many Capitals fans that were over the moon about the Capitals moving away from Capital One Arena out to Potomac Yard. I guess the potential was there. We didn't see what it was going to be. It was going to be a multi-use facility for the Wizards, for the Capitals, with a training facility on site. So, I mean, it seemed like a good idea, but my problem always was with it. It's in the heart of the city. It just seems like, the fans like it in general. I've never heard anything online about any displeasure about Capital One Arena. Are there nicer venues out there? Arenas, of course, there is. You take a look at Seattle, you see what the Islanders have. You take a look at what's going on out in Vegas. There are nicer, to be sure, but what does that mean? Ted Leonsis announced that he's going to be spending more money to be making Capital One Arena more state of the art. So these were pieces that were in the hockey news, and that was what started today. I was reading that on my break at work, and the news came in, and I was a bit surprised. It looks like the Capitals will be staying in D.C. after all. The mayor of Alexandria announced on Wednesday that City of Alexandria has ended negotiations related to Potomac Yard Entertainment District opportunity. Again, an about face, because Ted Leonsis was asked about this somewhat recently, and he said, listen, the framework is already in place. I understand that you have reservations, but it's going to happen. So for this to happen to him, it has to be a bit of humble pie, that despite the fact that he is a billionaire, that sometimes things can get shut down. This will end the proposed move to move the Caps and Wizards to Potomac Yard. There was quite a bit of backlash from fans and residents of DC about moving the team out of DC. And my thought was, from the fan perspective, of course, that again, like I talked about, there was never any displeasure that I had heard of about the Capitals playing where they currently are playing. And also, just to widen the lens a little bit, what that would have meant for local businesses. Listen, a lot of those businesses, restaurants, bars, those types of things, hotels, those would have suffered. If you minus the Capitals, if you minus the Wizards from there, there's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of people eating and drinking and lodging around that area that would no longer be doing that. There would be losers. And I understand that it's not Ted Leonsis's, the Capitals, the Wizards' job to keep those businesses afloat. I'm just saying that it would have been unfortunate. So a good thing, all things considered, for me. I'm going to go ahead and consider it a win-win for the Capitals. As stewards of the city's economic health and development, city leaders believed the Potomac Yard Entertainment District opportunity was worthy of community discussion and counsel. Wilson wrote, "We engaged in substantial community engagement over the past months that informed our negotiations and would have made the proposal even better for our community." And I'm not here to hate on the idea of the Capitals going out to Potomac Yard. I didn't really have a negative opinion of it. I just thought, well, if it's not broke, why fix it? I did not see anything wrong. The proposed move was supposed to take place in 2028, Leonsis announced in December. So, it's not like it was something that was going to happen overnight anyway, but it's just a good thing. I think the Capitals sitting where they are right now makes sense. There was backlash, but the rebuttal was the framework was already in place. So there was talk about there, like I've talked about in this segment, that, the framework is in place. We can't stop the wheels that are already in motion, but that was the case. And then in the Associated Press, they spoke about it as well. They said, the move is devastating for Republican Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, who announced months ago with a lot of hype the outlines of a proposal negotiated with the team's parent company to bring them across the Potomac River. This should have been our deal and our opportunity, Youngkin said. He added, but no personal and political agendas drove away a deal with no upfront general fund money and no tax increases that created tens of thousands of new jobs and billions in revenue for Virginia. So I understand that it would have helped out the economy of Virginia for sure. And that's one of the things, kind of like talking about, is it the Capitals' job? Is it the Wizards' job? Is it Ted Leonsis' job to help, the economy of Virginia? Then there was also rumblings that he tried to move the team to Maryland. So it seems like that, it wasn't Maryland at first, so then Virginia, and then heck, forget it all. Let's just keep it in DC. Monumental Sports and Entertainment, the team's parent company, and the District of Columbia are close to signing a letter of intent for a $515 million renovation of Capital One Arena, their current home that will keep the Capitals and Wizards in the city for the long term. according to the letter from CEO Ted Leonsis to employees that was obtained by the Associated Press on Wednesday. So good. They're going to invest in a facility that already exists and keep the Capitals right where they are. Again, that piece was in the Associated Press. So for me, I'm going to view it as a win for the fans. I'm going to view it as a win for the Capitals and the Wizards that they have a facility in place and they are going to be dumping $515 million to make it more state of the art. What's not to like? If there's the money around to be spent, if you got $515 million to spend to make Capital One Arena better, I say go ahead, go for it. I think the Capitals will appreciate it. I think that the Wizards will appreciate it as well. I think it'll be a better fan experience. Of course, I have not seen, any blueprints or renderings of what that's going to look like. But if you're spending $515 million, you better believe that there's going to be some improvement. So all things considered, a good day for the Capitals, a good day for DC and the fan base, as the Capitals will be staying put right where they are. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are ultimately what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On's 24/7 streaming channel available on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. I think you will love it. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.